All right, let's get right into this one. Today, we're putting a completely fascinating and utterly hilarious exchange under the microscope. We're looking at a super brief, maybe 150-word conversation between two inmates pulled straight from a comedic sketch. But we're not just going to sit back and laugh at it. Nope, we are going to academically deconstruct the whole thing. We're treating this dialogue with absolute deadpan seriousness to analyze the structural breakdown of logic, the incredibly fragile nature of the human ego, and how somehow a debate about international borders ends in a totally devastating wardrobe malfunction. Seriously, it's basically a masterclass in the rapid escalation of absurdity.
Okay, let's dive into our highly structured approach today. We've got 4 distinct phases. 1. The tunnel to Sri Lanka. 2. Visa checking in tunnel. 3. The battle of knowledge and ego. And finally, number 4, Earth versus pajamas.
Starting right off with Section 1, Tunnel to Sri Lanka, the geographical misunderstanding.
So the whole thing kicks off with this really profound spatial mix-up between the characters. One guy mentioned someone told him Sri Lanka is below India. Now, you know and I know that on a flat 2D map, Sri Lanka is to the south, which visually looks like it's down or below, right? But this character, he takes that 2D directional mapping and just applies it literally to his 3D physical space. So to him, below doesn't mean traveling south across the ocean, it literally means right underneath his feet. By that logic, to get to Sri Lanka, you just grab a shovel and start digging downwards.
And this brilliantly illustrates the absurdly simple logic of their whole escape plan. I mean, if the destination is physically underneath you, the fastest route is a vertical tunnel. They completely ignore the Earth's crust, the mantle, or the simple fact that digging straight down from India does not pop you out in Sri Lanka. In their heads, it's just a flawless 3-step process. You dig a tunnel downwards, you pack your visa, and boom, you emerge in Sri Lanka. It makes total sense, provided you just completely ignore all the laws of physics and planetary geography.
But wait, just as you think literally all logic is lost, we get this incredible gem of a moment. One of them actually spots a major flaw in the master plan. They can't start digging a tunnel because they are currently sitting on the 2nd floor of a building. It's this fleeting, absolutely brilliant moment of grounded logic. They actually recognize the immediate physical constraint of the room they're in. But, and here's the best part, instead of letting that realization dismantle the entire tunnel theory, they just treat it like a minor logistical hiccup and keep assuming the subterranean route to Sri Lanka is totally viable.
Which brings us to Section 2, Visa checking in tunnel, the bureaucratic reality. Now, what's really interesting here is the profound cognitive dissonance on full display. Think about it. They are actively plotting an illegal, clandestine prison escape via a dirt tunnel to bypass border security, yet their respect for bureaucratic paperwork is so deeply ingrained that they assume they're still going to need to carry a valid visa with them while they're literally crawling through the dirt. They've somehow conjured up this mental scenario where strict passport control officers are just stationed deep within the Earth's crust, waiting around to check the documents of rogue tunnelers.
Let's actually tally this up to really see how fast this geopolitical logic spirals out of control. First claim, we can dig a tunnel to Sri Lanka. The supporting logic? Well, somebody said it's below India. And the resulting action? Gotta remember to pack official travel documents for the underground dirt journey. Literally every single new detail they add to the plan just violently compounds the absurdity of the last one.
So that naturally leads us to a vital question for you guys. Is this just simple ignorance, or is it profound stupidity? Because look, ignorance is just lacking information. Like, okay, maybe you don't know how a map works. But stupidity? That's knowing you're digging an illegal dirt tunnel to escape a building, but still stressing out about official visa requirements. Keep that distinction in the back of your mind, because things are about to pivot from logistical problem solving into some deeply personal, aggressive attacks.
Section 3, Battle of Knowledge and Ego, the Gyan Dilemma.
Now we've hit the climax of the conversation. This is the exact moment they completely abandon geography so they can fiercely defend their own intellectual egos. In the source text, they use the Hindi word gyan, which translates to knowledge or wisdom. But look at how they're defining it in this fight. To them, knowledge isn't about finding the truth. It's a weapon. It's a tool that people use strictly to distribute fake information, act superior, and make fools out of everyone else. By that twisted definition, being called knowledgeable isn't a compliment at all. It's a direct accusation of being deceitful.
And this creates some absolutely unbelievable comedic friction. One of the guys takes massive offense and goes on this passionate defense of his own humility.
He proclaims that, hey, regardless of his vast intellect, he has never, ever stooped so low as to insult an ignorant person. The irony here is just off the charts. He is fiercely declaring his own absolute humility, while aggressively shouting down his friend over a fictional dirt tunnel. He's literally bragging about how humble he is.
At this point, the dialogue just completely implodes. The other guy instantly calls out the hypocrisy. He's basically like, what exactly have you been doing this entire time if not bragging and showing off your fake knowledge? And then, pure accusations are just flying back and forth. All pretense of a structured debate about Sri Lanka has completely vanished, and it's replaced entirely by frantic defensive ego protection.
Let's trace how this builds, because it's a super fascinating psychological progression. First, someone questions the visa logic. That challenge feels like a personal attack, which immediately leads to an accusation of distributing fake knowledge. To defend against that, the character claims absolute intellectual supremacy, but then instantly tries to mask that arrogance by feigning complete humility. I mean, it is just a textbook breakdown of a fragile ego under pressure.
And now, Section 4, Earth versus Pajamas, the grand finale.
We've reached the point where words are just not cutting it anymore. We need cosmic intervention. To prove his ultimate innocence and pure humility, our challenged character issues this grand, deeply theatrical challenge to the universe itself. He swears this mighty oath. If he has boasted even a single time today, he demands that the very earth split open beneath his feet and swallow him whole. It is literally Shakespearean in its gravity. He's putting his actual life on the line just to prove he wasn't showing off his geography skills.
And the comedic timing of what happens next is just chef's kiss. Perfect. Let's look at the timeline. Second 1, the grand oath is delivered with maximum fiery passion. Second 2, a moment of incredibly tense silence, waiting to see if the universe is going to answer his call and split the earth. Second 3, the universe does answer, but not by splitting the earth. Instead, the universe splits his pants. Yep, he suffers a devastating, entirely mundane wardrobe malfunction right at the absolute peak of his dramatic crescendo. And his opponent. He immediately drops the ultimate devastating punchline. He points out the cold, hard reality of the situation. The earth is totally fine, but your pajama is torn. How is the earth going to split when it's literally just your pants giving way under the pressure? All that grand theatricality, the invocation of the cosmos, the fierce defense of intellectual superiority, all of it is instantly, mercilessly grounded by a ripped piece of cheap sleepwear. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. We started with a map, a weird spatial misunderstanding, and this grand dream of tunneling to a whole new country. And we ended with bruised egos and torn sleepwear. It kind of forces us to ask, when we stubbornly dig in our heels to defend our own wildly flawed logic, when we let our egos write checks that our intellect definitely can't cash, does trying to dig down to Sri Lanka ultimately just lead to a torn pajama? The universe clearly has a remarkable sense of humor, especially when we take ourselves entirely too seriously. Thanks for joining me on this incredibly deep dive into the absurd. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.